So in the previous section, we have seen how we could configure ob user details object, and we can hard code the values and for user and password, and then we can validate whether the username or password it is correct or not. We have also created a password encoder bean so that it won't throw any exceptions. Then for load user by username, we are just returning this user detail security object with our hard-coded username and password. In this section, what we will do is instead of hard coding it, we will, instead of hard coding it, we will fetch the user details from the database. For that, we would have to, let's add some dependencies to connect to database. Let me add it in my form XML. I'll be adding my SQL dependency as well as the JPA dependency. And then I have also added the Lombok dependency for using the annotations like data and construct, all out constructor and all those. Now, since we have used MySQL dependency, I will configure my connection parameters for it. So I have provided the URL, username, password, and the driver and the storage engine. This is all that would be required for now for connecting to database. Also, I have configured in my database the table that is user data, which will have username, password, and role. And I have also inserted a row for admin, password, and the role as admin. And so let's create a model for user data in this. Already have a model. Data. And let's annotate it with data. And so that it will automatically link to our database table. Then we have three columns: username, password. Oh, sorry. String username, string, and then role. Okay. Now let's annotate username with ID instead of having a user ID and just annotating username with ID. And so our user data is created. Now we would have to map our user data to our user details, because as we know from the previous section that we can only send user details. I mean, load user by username sends user details. So we would have to map user data to user details object and then return it. For that, let me create a mapper. User data is mapper. And inside this, let's create a method which will return a user data object, details object, and create convert. Let's put convert details, and it will accept user data as its argument. There is one more. Instead of creating this user details object, which we were already creating it over here, user detail security, custom user detail security. Instead of writing this whole code and then creating a new object and then every time just doing that, there is one more way in which we could create a user details object in the same way. So for that, we will use user the with username, and then let's pass user data dot get username dot password user data dot get password. Let's provide roles also. So, and then so let's see what's there in this user. Yeah, as you see in this user, it also implements user details. So anyways, we would be sending anyways at the end of the day we would be able to send user details object, and it has all the methods: get authorities, get password, get username, everything. And then yeah, and it does has password, username, and all of these parameters with the help because of which we are building it with the help of our build method. Now, since we have it over here, let's make it a static so that we are able to access this. Now, we from service security, user detail service security, instead of returning this new, what we will do is first we will fetch the user from the database. So, our optional of user data of user data user data equal to, now we have to fetch it from database, we would have to create a repository. So let's create it. Wow. Let's annotate it with add it first. At the rate or body, and not class. This will be an interface. And user data repository. This will extend our API repository. Object will be user data, and our key will be string format. Okay, so this is our user data repository. Now let's auto wire it over here. Let's use constructor auto wiring. Public details service security, and let's pass user the repository. And then let's create an object over here. And let's initialize it. Test this. So it will refer to this one. And okay, since it is there, and we also have to use this mapper. Okay, now first we would have to fetch it from DB. So user data repository dot find by ID, and let's pass our username. So this will fetch. So this will fetch the user data from our database, that is this one. And if the username matches, so it will fetch this one, the first row, that is admin, and then it will give to user data reference, and then let's check if it is empty or not. If user data is empty, then we just throw new username not found exception. User found cannot found. Need to specify. Might give them these much details. Okay, and then if it is present, then we would have to map it to user details and then return it. For that, let's use, okay, instead of, since it is static method, I can directly use it over here. So user data details mapper, but then this user data, and let's return this. Okay, this will be my user data. Why is it complaining? It's optional. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, now let's understand all of this better. So we have this demo controller. To access this, we would have to first authenticate the user. For that, instead of using our traditional user details security, we have created a new user data which will map to our database table, that is this user data. And yeah, so over here we have inserted one row for admin username and a password. Now this is done. Now we have created repository for it, and then we have in user detail service security, instead of using the previous user detail security, we will be fetching it from the DB by ID and then throwing the exception if it is not present, and if it is present then we will convert user data to user details object and then send it. Okay. Okay. And if the username and everything matches, username and a password matches, then it should allow us to access the endpoint. Now let's see. Let's hope there are no exceptions this time. Okay. So our application has started successfully. Luckily, no exceptions this time. And let's try to access it. Demo/hello. Yeah, it will send us to the login page. Let's use dummy one, that is the previous one, user and password. Since it is not present, it is giving bad credentials. Let's admin and password. Let's sign in. Yeah, so it works. That's all.